What if I build a gaming PC for under $200 in 2026? You know what? Let's try it. With RAM prices going absolutely crazy because of AI, I honestly didn't know if it was even possible. Before even thinking about prices, I had to define what this PC actually needs to do. This isn't just a PC that turns on, we need to be able to play modern games at 1080p, even if it means low or medium settings. So here are my minimum requirements for this build. Ideally, I would want a processor with at least 4 cores or similar. For the motherboard, DDR4 is preferred, but DDR3 is acceptable. For the GPU or graphic card, I will want 3 to 4 GB of VRAM capable of running modern games at least low settings. For the RAM, 8 GB is ideal, but if I start with less, I want it to be upgradable. Storage, I would say 240 GB total. I would prefer an SSD. And for the power supply, 400 watts or higher from a known brand, and any functional PC case would be great for this build. Now that I already have the liquid cooler, I can decide on the CPU and motherboard first. So basically those are the foundation of the build, so once I decide on them, the other parts will be easier to match. After looking for a while, it's been really hard to find the parts I want for a good price. Since my budget is only $200, I can't spend too much on one part because that would make it more difficult to find the rest of them. The processors I found were great, but they didn't come with a motherboard, and finding a cheap motherboard for them has not been easy. Because of that, it makes more sense to keep looking for a CPU and motherboard combo. Problem with using Facebook Marketplace for something like this is that some items or deals are gonna be too far away. Even if the price is good, it might not be worth the time and effort to pick them up. For example, this combo was a great deal, but since it was in a different state, it wasn't really worth the trip there. This deal was alright, but I didn't like that the processor was from 2009 and that it didn't include any RAM or storage. And then there it was, hidden from me all the time, an Intel i3-10100F and an MSI B460M PRO. I finally found a great CPU and motherboard combo. It is like 1 hour away, but it was totally worth it. So I asked the seller if everything was fine with it. Obviously you can't just trust someone like that, but we need to consider that to test it ourselves would require a lot of effort. So for the price, it was better to just trust the seller. I told him I could do 50 and pick it up the same day, and he agreed to that. So we are on our way there. It's in Quincy, so it's about an hour away from it. It is kind of cold, right? You can see. So it's 2 trains, the blue line and the red line. And I guess it's the same for the way back, obviously. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I picked up the CPU and motherboard from the seller. Now let's jump to when I'm home. Okay, so we have them. This Intel i3-10100F and this MSI B460M PRO are a few generations old, but they're still a solid budget combo for gaming and even entry-level content creation. The Intel i3-10100F, with its 4 cores and 8 threads, still performs surprisingly well in modern games when paired with the right GPU. This MSI B460M PRO may not be the most expensive motherboard out there, but it offers everything this build needs: support for fast DDR4 memory, NVMe SSDs, and future upgrades, making it a great foundation for a budget gaming PC. Now it's time to test them. I connect the power supply to the motherboard, I plug in the main 24-pin motherboard cable and the CPU power cable. I put a RAM stick so I can access the BIOS. Since we get a display and can enter the BIOS, it means they're working. For the power supply, I was looking at different options. People sell them a lot, so it's not hard to find deals. For example, I found this case and power supply combo for just $25, but the seller never replied. After a bit more searching, I came across this 500-watt Thermaltake power supply listed for $20. I offered $15 and told the seller I could pick it up the next morning, and luckily he accepted the offer. And there we had it. It was snowing a lot, so I had to put it in my bag quickly. And when I got home, I tested it and it was working without any issues. One of the trickiest parts to find is the RAM. In the current market, memory prices are still very high, partly because of the demand from data centers, and the same thing is happening with the storage. Most of the listings I found were simply too expensive for this build. They might make sense for a normal budget PC, but for this challenge, they definitely didn't. And there were a few interesting items. But just like with everything, it's just a matter of time until you find something amazing. And guess what I found? I found 16GB of DDR4 RAM listed for only $20. These weren't just any RAM sticks either, they were rated at 3600MHz, which made the deal even better. I didn't waste a second, asked the seller if they were working, and picked them up the same day. And there we have them. For just $20, this has easily been the best deal of the entire build so far. Now it's time to test them. We put both RAM sticks. We connect the cables for the power supply. And we can see they are working perfectly. With the CPU, motherboard, RAM, and power supply secured, we're down to the final pieces, which are storage, graphic card, and a PC case or a test bench if we can find one for a good price. At this point, we're only $90 into our $200 budget, leaving us with $110 to spend on the remaining parts. When looking for SSDs and hard drives, most of the listings were not really that good. They either had very little storage or were way too expensive. And using only a hard drive wasn't really an option because it would make the whole PC feel slow every time it boots up or opens programs. After a month of searching for deals, I finally found something worth picking up. A 1TB hard drive and a 240GB SSD combo for just $30. It was a great combo and exactly what this build needed, so I picked it up the same day. Deals like this don't last long if you hesitate. Someone else is gonna try to grab them first, so if you can pick them up the same day or the next, it's a good idea to do it. Okay, so I'm about to pick up the SSD and the hard drive, so I'll be there in like around 2 minutes, and we're gonna test it when we get home. He said it's working properly, so we'll see. Okay, so I got them here. They are great, and after testing them, they work perfectly. And now for the next part. For the case, I'm actually going with a test bench. It's gonna make this build a lot easier to work on throughout the video, and surprisingly it's pretty similar in price compared to the many used cases I found on Facebook Marketplace. Plus, picking up a full PC case is a lot less practical than grabbing a test bench. On Amazon, test benches were really cheap, so I bought one. This was in Chinese, so yeah, good luck to me. At the end, it wasn't too hard, so here's the result. And last but not least, the graphic card. The graphic card is one of, if not the most important part of a gaming PC. It's responsible for rendering all the graphics you see on screen, and in most games, it's the component that has the biggest impact on performance. On Facebook Marketplace, there are plenty of graphics cards available, and most of the time, the prices are really good. Just be careful and always ask for videos of them working, because it can quickly turn into an expensive mistake. For us, the main issue was the budget. I only wanted to spend around $40 on a GPU, and most of the deals I found were cards with 4GB of VRAM or less. Originally I wanted a 6GB GTX 1060, but they were usually selling for around $70. That's when I noticed that the RX 580 with 8GB of VRAM was a bit cheaper, while offering very similar performance. This card is still capable of running modern games at 1080p at really good frame rates, but finding one within budget wasn't easy. I had to do a lot, and I mean a lot of searching and negotiating with sellers. After a while, I finally managed to secure one for just $40, which was an amazing deal, and it was working perfectly. And here I have it. Now it's time to test it and put everything together. For a $200 gaming PC, this is pretty impressive. We'll be able to play modern games at 1080p, and with technologies like FSR and frame generation, we can push the performance even further and get surprisingly high frame rates. Because I'm not using a traditional PC case, I won't be able to use the liquid cooler I originally planned on installing. However, the stock cooler that came with the CPU is more than capable of handling the i3-10100F, especially on an open-air test bench like this one. Everything is ready, and now it's time to install Windows. Now that everything is up and running, it's finally time for the fun part. I'll update the GPU drivers, install Fortnite and Cyberpunk, and see just how much performance we can squeeze out of this $200 gaming PC. And now for the fun part. In Fortnite, this PC runs great. At 1080p with low-medium settings, the game runs smoothly. Load times are pretty quick, and even in the waiting area with a ton of players around, the game is running at roughly 70 FPS. As soon as we drop into the map, the performance jumps by about 20 FPS with an average of around 100 FPS. The game feels incredibly smooth, and the combat is responsive with no problems keeping up with the action. Inside buildings and in areas with a lot of players, the game runs at around 80 FPS, while remaining smooth with no noticeable performance drop. But even with high FPS, I'm still bad at Fortnite. And now for the next game, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the most demanding games you can play on PC. Fortunately, the developers have implemented many of the technologies released by AMD and Nvidia over the years, and for a budget build like ours, that's a huge advantage. At 1080p with AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 3 set to performance mode and FSR 3.1 frame generation enabled, the game runs at around 100 FPS on mostly medium settings, which is honestly incredible for a $200 gaming PC. Out of curiosity, I tried bumping the resolution up to 1440p, and the results shocked me. Cyberpunk 2077 was still pushing nearly 80 FPS, which is something I never expected from a $200 gaming PC. And with that, I end the video. It's been 4 months since I started this project, and at times it's been really difficult, but I enjoyed every second of it. Subscribe and leave a like if you'd like to see more videos like this, and let me know in the comments what other ideas or challenges we should try next. Until the next one, bye.